Hey Emily, hey Ronnie.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. How you doing?
Good, thank you. Am I going to take the notes today or no until Ted gets on?
You are the unlucky one who had the hand up originally.
I don't mind.
Might have a couple arriving late here. 2 to 3 arriving late. So that has implications for approving the we'll give it one more minute. As we might be WHC TV. You want to let us know if we're already live or not, or just give us a heads up if we are. As a courtesy. Thank you.
Yes, hi. Yep, we're live. So whenever you're ready to begin, you can begin.
Well, that sounds wonderful. So I hope there was no Cleveland Browns fans in the audience. Sean.
Can I ask Megan, her invitations keep showing up in my spam. Is there anything I can do to avoid that? I mean, I'm an okay tech guy, but I usually don't have that happen. So I like it that my system thinks the town of West Hartford should go into spam.
Megan, you want to do tech support on the fly? Feel free. Otherwise, we can take that offline either way.
Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that one. I haven't heard of that happening, the invites ending up in people's spams.
You could probably set a rule on that. Unless that's intentional and you already set the rule.
Sorry about that.
All right. Give me just one more moment. person joins, I think we can formally approve meeting dates for 2021, which is the one item I think requires.
Thrilled about it.
You know, it easily could turn into that sort of. Give us a countdown and we'll just get it started.
Yes, we're live whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. This is the West Hartford Conservation Environment Commission, January 25th, 2021 meeting. My name is Matt Masunas, so I'll be your chair this evening. For virtual meeting viewing instructions, the public hearing and meeting will be conducted exclusively as a virtual meeting in accordance with the Town Plan and Zoning Commission rules and regulations for the transaction of business and executive orders number 7B and 7I issued by Governor Ned Lamont. The public hearings will be broadcast live on television and West Hartford Community Interactive Comcast Channel 5 and Frontier TV Channel 6098. Stream live on www.whctv.org. Call to order at 7:08 p.m. We've got a few members still rolling in tonight, so we're going to change agenda order. For old business, we aren't covering on this one. We're going straight to new business. I'm actually going to do updates first. One of them being that we do have a new individual stepping in with new responsibilities on the CEC. Let me give some quick exposition on that. So when I first, many years ago, wrote to the town expressing interest in a volunteer position, you know, I was in between jobs. I had no children and I was no longer in school. All of those circumstances have since changed. And so my available free time has changed as well to dedicate to pursuits of choice. And so I think everyone, it's been no secret, I've been making calls for a number of years as the chair of the CEC for other officer positions to be filled in by those who are interested. And certainly nudging members into taking leadership postures, particularly as we've been without a vice chair for several years now. And so if I get busy, and frankly, I'm heading into a busy work season as we speak, then we wouldn't need necessarily to cancel meetings in order to still hold them. So, you know, as of the most recent few meetings, I've made these entreaties to members, and based on expressions of interest, a call has been answered. I'd now like to announce our new vice chair, and it's Mr. Sean Daly. So thank you for stepping up to that role. I am actually not surprised in the slightest, as since from your first meeting onward, you had done so well in leaning into virtually every issue and expressing curiosity and certainly driving engagement and activity with the Conservation Environment Commission. So I'm pleased as punch to mention it. Feel free to say any words that you might so choose, Mr. Daly.
No, no words, but thanks. I think basically when you say delving in is probably just a pseudonym for being a pain in to everyone, but I appreciate that and look forward to helping the commission as best I can.
Thank you, sir. It's not agreement with me or my positions that I would seek out in that. It's the enthusiasm itself. And so I think that is being recognized here. So moving into our agenda items, we've got approval of 2021 meeting schedule dates. However, given the quorum that we have right now, I skipped right over attendance, but I know members had expressed to me earlier that some would be a number of minutes late to this meeting, and therefore a full roster is not being taken at this time. I will start with who we've got, and so we'll backtrack for the moment to attendance and then backfill that in the minutes. Matt Masunas, chair, present. Emily Scott.
Present.
Sean Daly.
Present.
Ronnie Rodman.
Present.
Other members absent at this time, and that will be adjusted as the meeting rolls on and we do our approvals of the 2021 meeting dates. The only other item that we had reserved for time on the January 25th meeting was open discussion, strategy and issue identification. And I believe our new vice chair may have been eager to take the lead on that one, or at least I am eager to see him take the lead on it. And so I will put myself on mute and turn the floor over to him. Mr. Daly, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I know there's just the four of us on here, and that's fine. You know, we can add other folks later on. Not to mention, we certainly can assign stuff to people who aren't here, which I enjoy doing as a punishment for people being late. No, I'm just kidding. But a couple of things. First of all, I did send out for me a rather brief email the other night, just talking about what to expect from this little exercise today. So while I have everybody here, just either by show of hands or nods, did everyone get a chance to see it and or read it? Okay. I only asked so that I don't have to regurgitate everything that was in there. But the other question I have is, have any of you, either personal or other boards or other companies that you've worked for, gone through a similar exercise before?
It struck me with some familiarity. You know, questions could have been phrased differently, but the general gist of that, absolutely. I thought that was well framed.
Okay.
Yeah, for the sake of,
I'd love to take
virtual
credit
meeting, we might be reiterating some of those. Back to you.
No, appreciate it. For the purposes of it, well, first of all, I'd love to take credit for it, but it's not mine. A lot of this comes from pieces of a University of Michigan study on adult learning and how we promote or work through strategy. And how this came about was conversations that I had with two things, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure. Is it possible that I assume we're suspending Robert's rules for the purposes of our discussion to have an open discussion?
I have no objection to that. It might be just as difficult to hold them under Robert's rules as to not hold them under Robert's rules, but I'll actually defer and recognize Ms. Scott as a resident legal scholar, or at least closest thing to it among the group present. Can we ask for your opinion on this, non-binding, and if you make the wrong one, it shall not be held in judgment against you?
I'm sorry. So the question is, in this freewheeling discussion of strategy and whatnot, are we bound by Robert's rules?
And or can we waive them even if we normally are?
I see. That's not an issue that I've researched, and I'm not offering any kind of legal opinion on the matter. My personal view as a commission member only is that it's not realistic to bind ourselves to any kind of Robert's rule structure in what will likely be a freewheeling discussion. So perhaps, we do our best to maintain some semblance of order, but not, focus on that too much. But I don't have any, that's not an item that I've ever looked into specifically.
The way that a well-reasoned opinion will be implemented is through the chair waiving his typical prerogative to have all questions and answers directed through him and just use greater discretion. Have that sound. Back to you, Mr. Daly.
And okay, great, thanks. So basically, without again getting too much into what I wrote on Sunday, the main thing, the reason or the purpose for this call is when I first joined the meeting, Matt was the chairman was kind enough to have a kind of a welcome call with me, and we had a good discussion. Part of that discussion was, of course, as the chairman mentioned, I had several questions. And part of that was kind of, I saw on the town website and read the guidebook on kind of the purpose of our commission, but I wanted to understand kind of if we had any kind of type of formal strategy, if there were certain types of an agenda that we had overall based on the this year or future years. Items that we were trying to do, things that we were trying to provide forward thinking for the town. And as part of that, the answer was, well, no, but it's something we should be looking at. It's something we should do. I also kind of had questions as to, where did our commission stand as far as it relates to other boards and commissions within the town, and kind of what's the jurisdiction of what our organization has in relation to our authoritative power and influence with the town council. And so I think, Mr. Chairman, correct me if I'm wrong, but most of our conversation, well, that's something we should discuss. That's something we should talk about. And that then led to talking about a formal strategy, which led to, eventually we should have a meeting where we can all get together and talk about kind of where do we want to set the direction for the CEC? How do we work, or how should we work with other boards and commissions within the town? And what should we be thinking about, and what should we be doing when it comes to either making recommendations or providing guidance and influence with the town council? Mr. Chairman, does that sound correct? Am I missing or misstating anything?
I wouldn't say you're misstating anything. I'd say you captured the essence of that from that welcoming conversation of bringing you onto the commission. I forget when it was. I presume this past spring sounds right. Those were issues that you had identified and that I was enthusiastic to also engage on. Since then, as we were in a bit of a interregnum period, what with stay-at-home just starting and people adapting to the virtual environment, there was rather, I don't know, maybe 1/3 of the year that we had allowed to go into wait-and-see mode before re-engaging in an all-virtual environment, and we have faithfully since then. So now that we have, I think that we can have this open and brutally honest discussion, unrehearsed on live television, and just be completely comfortable with it. Half kidding. And seriously though, yes, you characterized it correctly. Happy to engage that discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with that said, right, I had kind of put out a list of questions. And so really for the purposes of today's discussion, and quite frankly, it's been my experience that something like this is sometimes a 1 or 2 day session. And we just don't have, we don't have the luxury of that time. So with that, we're trying to condense this down to maybe a couple of 1 hour sessions over a couple of months. So I thought the best thing to do would be to spend this hour, and it may not take that long, especially given the number of people that we have here, but identifying kind of what are the things that we see currently with our commission, both the positive, the challenges, and the opportunities. And then, and maybe we'll spend, 20 minutes or so on that. And then maybe spend 20 minutes on, kind of what do we want, the future state to look like, right? What would we like our commission to be based on what it currently is already, and what we'd like to have to mold it into. So any questions kind of before we get started? Okay. So, so I don't, this is one rarity where I don't want to be the only one speaking here. So, Ronnie, I would love for you guys to be able to chime in, and please, this is only going to work if we have a lot of participation. So I know Ronnie and I are new members, fairly new members here, but I think that's good because we provide an outsider's perspective. So I'd love to kind of hear from you guys about kind of from the past, even before we got on, what do you feel are some of the accomplishments that the commission has done so far over the past, years that you've been on the commission?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
You may.
Thank you. I think the primary accomplishment, or really the only accomplishment that I think is worth raising is the same one over and over dozens of times, which was providing a environmental preview of applications going before town planning and zoning, and digging into some of those environmental issues in more detail, and talking through some of those issues with the applicants, and then flagging them for planning and zoning when it is their turn to review. And I think, I say that's and again, I want to say that's the one accomplishment dozens and dozens of times, right? That was the primary service we were providing for, how long have I been involved? 4 years, roughly. And so I think, in years past, if there was no application before us, we would just say like, no need for a meeting this month, no need for meeting in January. We'll see you guys in March or whatever. And there would be, Matt, I don't want to exaggerate, but I think it's fair to say we met half the time, maybe, that we had a meeting scheduled, because that was the kind of caseload we had before us. And I think, around a couple of years ago, we started to say, like, how can we add value? Like, are we adding value? Is this worth doing? And I think we had some informal feedback from others in the town about how, like, yes, these summaries are useful, but my primary goal, as we move through this process, and I think we all recognize that this isn't something that we can accomplish in just one day. This is great that we're having this conversation, and I'm sure we'll circle back to it. I think we should solicit more formal dialogue with others involved in the process, so that both staff and members of town planning and zoning, as commission members, to say, here's the framework. How can we plug in most efficiently for this fundamental service that we're supposed to be providing? And so that's kind of task one. We have this job that we've been doing. Are we doing it well? Is it worth doing? I don't know the answer to any of these questions. I would need someone else who's getting these reports to tell me. And then separately, as we started having this identity crisis, we started having dialogue with the Clean Energy Task Force and some other groups about, to the extent we should be doing more than just these reports, or what would it be? And so that's kind of where you plugged in. So
that's awesome. First of all, thank you. That's extremely helpful. One thing I just caution's not the word here, but it's a common thing that happens here, which is a lot of times we immediately go to the future state, right?
Yep.
And when you said we need to solicit more formal dialogue, I totally agree with you. I think that's a future state that we want to talk about. So please save that, right? Yep. Make sure you're thinking about that. Things I heard was, right, primarily our main accomplishment has been the same, which is we provide a preview from an environmental perspective of things going before planning and zoning. It seemed to be our primary service, but the issue was that if there was no application, then there was no need for us. We only met maybe half the time in the past, and we weren't sure if we're adding value. There was kind of an identity crisis. So, and by the way, as a person coming in, I actually have seen that. So I absolutely agree with you. So the other question I have is, because when I looked on the website, I expected to find that either we were a subcommittee of planning zoning or something like that, but that doesn't appear to be the case. Am I right? That we're right.
That's
Okay.
Independent.
That's correct. We have our own ordinance. I have it up even. Okay, so we are, if you look at West Hartford Code Section 25-13, and subsequent sections, we are not a subcommittee of planning and zoning. We are our own thing with our own section in the municipal ordinances, and it's very slender.
Yeah.
So there's like a lot of room. There's kind of vague directives, and a lot of
but
room
that's good because we can kind of mold. Yeah, no, but that's kind of good because we can kind of mold and shape the way we think we can add best value for the town residents, which is what I think we should be doing. The whole reason for the commission. So the other question I have is, does planning and zoning always come to us prior to a project, and do we know if they have on their as part of their ordinance that they should always go through us first with a project before proceeding?
The genesis of that process, I don't know if anyone knows. It probably goes pretty far back, certainly several chairs back, which is at least 5 years, and probably multiples of that as a practice, I'm assuming. There's nothing in code stating that. Current practice has tended to be that in the virtual environment, the town will reserve suitable town projects for this commission to be reviewing that has to do with inland wetlands and watercourses applications. But independent projects, not so much. And earlier this year, that has been with the assent of Chairman Masunas here to the town, saying we don't want to get in the way of citizens and their business as one additional hurdle to jump through when we haven't even adapted to the virtual environment, and instead force people to wait months to approve their swimming pool application, for example. And so therefore they can go directly to TPZ as a result of that. So I think that in the last year in the virtual environment, that has also kind of shifted, partly out of necessity. I'm going to deviate for just a moment here. Welcome Emily Grainer Sexton. Minutes shall reflect her attendance as well.
Awesome. So a couple of questions on that. So do we have, or I notice also you mentioned the zoning IWWA, I think is what it's called. But then there's also a zoning appeals board, and there's like 3 different zoning commissions on the town. Do we connect to all 3, or do we primarily connect with the zoning IWWA?
We primarily connect with the official wetlands body of the town, which is the Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as its town staff counterparts who do so much of the process engineering and advisement work behind that.
And then has it mostly been that we wait for the zoning to come to us with something, or have there been instances where we've gone to zoning and said, hey, I think this needs to come through us first?
That theoretically could happen, but only based on expressions of interest. None of those have occurred during my 5+ years on this commission. So it has all been reactive relative to referrals coming to us.
Okay. But we have the authority to request that?
We have the authority to request a great many things, I presume. As to whether anyone is obliged, the town, for example, to fulfill that request is a matter of interpretation, I would imagine.
So the only way, if for some reason there was something we wanted to look at and zoning didn't honor the request, chances are we would have to go to the town council and get them to request it. Is that how that works?
I'd hesitate to opine on that, as you yourself put it, as a matter of probability. Chances are, right? And I don't exactly know those chances in terms of where an individual request might be redirected or joined to some other response. Yeah.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, if I may, for a moment.
You may.
I'm not quite understanding the specific fact pattern or fact patterns that we're talking about, because since we don't formally vote on anything, really, no one would stop us from gathering together and writing a strongly worded letter about something, for example, if that's what we wanted to do. But since we are not voting, we're simply, summarizing applications, things of that nature. There's not.
I'm sorry, did you say zoning or voting?
We're not voting with a V. So there's not like the same kind of like, hey, you forgot to ask if we approved it, because we don't approve anything. That's not our role. So since that's not our role to actually formally approve anything, if we wanted to write some letter, we can't make them read it, but they can't stop us from writing it, right?
Excellent point.
It's interesting, and I appreciate this because this is helpful certainly to me as well. But so when you say we don't approve anything, are there part of the zoning ordinances and other boards and commissions where they are given the authority to vote and we're not? Because I haven't read anything like that, but you're saying there are.
Yeah, I mean, so like planning and zoning would like approve an application and, then go forth and build whatever it is you're planning on building. We are not the statutory inland wetlands authority, so we're not actually the ones approving like the inland wetlands permits, for example. We're just.
So our role is really more of a guidance and questioning of those that have the voting authority.
I'd say advisory.
Advisory,
yeah.
Exactly.
And the fact there's no voting is either explicit or implicit, what with how our code is written and how others' codes are written, like Emily had suggested. If it's up to a commission to, quote, approve of something, then the vote is implied. With us, I don't think approve is anywhere within the code that indicates what we are charged with as a result. But that really gets to a key sticking point right here, which I've been thinking about on and off for a number of meetings or perhaps even years here, as we've begun to shift the overall framework of the commission, or at least in an exploratory sense, to other issues where maybe an approval is warranted, at least among commission members, right? How does that work then? If you are elevating an issue to carrying the, let's call it put it on the banner or the masthead of the CEC rather than of an individual person, how does one get from an idea to that, right? Because there's a lack of unanimity on some things. And so overcoming that, we haven't had to take votes before, and so we don't have formally adopted processes at this moment to resolve disputes inside the commission. And so that's actually been something that has always been on the back burner here, but would eventually need resolution, I feel, if we were to continue going down this path of, as we say, asserting ourselves in some manner, right? Do you need to take a vote and it's simple majority or some other fraction? Is it unanimous? Or can a member just do something in CEC's name and ask for forgiveness and rather than permission, and have the ability for members to express concern, you know?
Or do you run like SCOTUS and you have a majority opinion and a minority opinion?
Right, exactly. So articulate the pros and cons as a result. Excellent. So that's number 4 for an option right there. So yeah, that sort of resolution process might need to be established before engaging, established formally or informally, before engaging meaningfully, I think, in some of these issues that we're discussing. Or at least recognize that a process would be a best practice for the CEC, for some form of dispute resolution.
Awesome. So, Mr. Chairman, before I continue, do you want to recognize the 2 new members that have joined?
I sure do. I see Mr. Ted Newton and Mr. Rick Bush. I didn't even see him before, and also Emily Grainer Sexton, who had joined us previously. So that rounds things out and lets us not forget about the other agenda item at the end, but I won't interrupt this conversation in the middle. Now that we have quorum, we're able to approve our meeting dates at the end. Mr. Daly, please continue.
Thank you. So for the purposes of the members who just joined, right now we're in the middle of talking about the current state. My hope is that some of you, as I usually say with a nice glass of wine, happen to read the email that I sent last night about the kind of the format of today's discussion. Right now, we've just been talking about the current state of the CEC, and based on some of the bullet questions that I provided in the email to you folks last night, we've been talking about what do you feel have been the accomplishments of our commission? We've actually covered kind of point number 2 too. What are the strengths of the commission and where we think we're currently have our challenges and opportunities. Some of the items that have been discussed, just to bring everyone up to speed, was that primarily most of our accomplishments in the past have been providing preview of environmental issues that are before planning and zoning. If there weren't any applications, there would be no need for the CEC to meet. So in the past, there were times where we met only half the time. There was some issues with our identity crisis, not sure whether or not we were adding value but we did receive feedback that yes, we were. And we are definitely not a subsection of Planning and Zoning Committee. We've not had it where the CE. It's been mostly the zoning telling us what they'd like us to look at, whereas we haven't, we as the CEC haven't told zoning, hey, we'd like to take a look at this from an environmental perspective. It also sounded, Matt, based on some of your comments, that we're a little unsure of how requests are processed, and also we don't seem to have a process to resolve disputes within the commission. Am I missing anything? Awesome. So with that said, Ronnie, Ted, Emily, Rick, anything that you would like to add as far as things that you see from a current state with the CEC?
I'd like to interject. That there's probably room for more members, and more members of the community could also be joining us. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, it's Ted Newton.
Uh,
Going to make a comment.
We had agreed earlier that permission requests can automatically be assumed just for the sake of the nature of this dialogue.
Great. Okay, so I guess one of the questions that I think we would want to resolve too is, maybe you've already discussed this, but where is the need in the community for the value that we can bring? So we have other commissions and committees that touch upon some of the topics that we do, and we want to make sure that we know where our place is and what types of topics would be best suited for this commission to tackle, so that we're not duplicating efforts that other commissions and other town areas are dealing with. So, we have to look at it and say, is our best value provided in taking on conservation types of topics and being advisory in nature? And is that lacking in the town right now, or is that being handled by somebody else? And if so, then perhaps we say, okay, that's probably not the best place for the commission. Maybe we need to do more of technical review of certain applications because we think that is lacking elsewhere.
I have a sense for that, but Mr. Daly, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Just have we, obviously, while I wasn't thrilled with the Clean Energy Commission plan, the bottom line was they had a plan, a plan for that we could look at and bounce things off of and understand where they were coming from. Have we ever done anything like that with in the past with the CEC?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
To Mr. Newton's point, it gives me one idea, and I don't want to jump ahead to, Mr. Daly was narrating us through step one right here, the current state or past state of things. So I wouldn't want to jump into future state too soon and jaundice others' perspectives, but, it did give me the idea. Have folks heard of something called sustainable CT? It's this kind of credentialing rubric that is statewide that towns can opt into and receive recognition for sustainability actions, and they can a la carte choose off the menu kind of what they want to do with that. And yet I imagine it probably takes a fair amount of staff time to advance, assemble, report on each and every one of those things as they try to seek that sort of bronze, silver, gold status as a way of getting sustainability bragging rights, so to speak. And on top of that, there's a match funding pool that is now available under there, and that is kind of a powerful tool right there, having matching grant capability automatically perhaps perhaps automatically, for fundraisers or initiatives, because money can sometimes be a meaningful factor in a capacity building process and making change, right? So, for those reasons, I just throw that out there, that what Mr. Newton said made me think of sustainable CT and perhaps some form of future state engagement with that. And future state, I mean state of CEC. But again, I don't want to fast forward any part of the conversation here and bias others' perspectives either.
Well, no, this is helpful. If you already see, we're at 7:45, and I wanted to get it into the future state, at 7:30. So, but this is good because I don't want to stop the conversation. There's a lot of, I guess, before we get to the future state, one of the things I'd like to ask is, a lot of we've talked about kind of in the past is, things that, identity issues and other types of issues. What would you say? There was some talk about this with the primary accomplishments, but I guess why would somebody want to be part of the CEC, and what why are you guys part of this commission? What do you feel are the positives of the commission?
Were you going to volunteer one yourself there as an icebreaker?
Sure. I will tell you that, many times I've seen why I wanted to be on this commission was, it's going to be kind of funny, but I see us sometimes going through initiatives for the town without truly understanding the unintended consequences that are created by some of our conservation and environmental initiatives. And I wanted to be on the commission so that when we do have something that the commission is passionate about, we're thinking about all aspects, including unintended consequences that happen.
Policymakers are routinely terrified of unintended consequences. I'll volunteer my own motivation for originally writing to the town and years ago and indicating joining, and that was just civic engagement. I wanted to get involved with the community and do so on terms I was interested in, environmental conservation being one of those expressed. Ted, you might be mute.
Dog was barking before, so I was just going to say exactly what you did, Matt. I want to be involved with the town, and I'm personally interested in conservation methods and measures, and I thought this would be a good commission to serve on because it would dovetail nicely with my interests.
Awesome. Any other comments before we move on to future state? Go ahead, Rick. You're on mute, though.
Sorry, guys. All right. Just echo what everybody else has been saying. I think it's a good place to get your brain around ideas before they get through us. It's a good place to brainstorm, to discuss, to kind of look at things, and just an extra part of the filtering process. It's definitely good to be involved. I think there's always a place for this type of discussion. So I'm happy to be part of it. Yeah.
And now you might be on mute, Mr. Daly.
Look at me. Ronnie, Emily, any other items to add?
No, I think that I just wanted to be involved. I mean, I've been very involved with the schools, so this is kind of just my dog's coming. Involved with the next step. I do think that with this committee, I don't think the average person in town has any clue what this committee is, to be honest with you. And I think that if we want to sit back and just kind of advise on what the zoning committee wants us to do, that's fine. It sounds like that's what this was intended for. However, to Sean's point, if we want to move forward into the future, maybe amend what we do. and like you said, maybe proactive rather than reactive to what other people are asking us to do. But with all of us, we could make that decision as to where we want to go forward.
Awesome. Thanks. Emily, anything before we move on?
I was going to say my motivation could have been Matt's word for word. So, +1 to Matt's.
No, and actually, again, thank you for your comments earlier, because that was extremely helpful in getting things started. So appreciate it. Okay, so let's last 10 minutes here, just move to the future state. And actually, I have some bullet points based on some of our earlier comments. So it sounds like, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, or feel free to restate, but I hear, we'd like to solicit more formal dialogue with some of the other boards and commissions that we may or should be interacting with, not just planning and zoning. I also heard we need to better understand the genesis of planning and zoning and how we interact with them, and understand kind of the process that we either want to create or have in place. Future state I also have is to look at how we provide the advice to other areas of authority, either through a majority and a minority opinion, or through some sort of voting, coming together to either write a letter or something like that. I also heard maybe looking at, do we want to be part of the Sustainable Connecticut, or have some sort of part of the Connecticut Sustainable or Sustainable CT status? Say that 10 times fast. And then, do we want a future state also might be creating some sort of plan for our commission, similar to what the Clean Energy Commission did. Anyone agree, disagree? This is actually one port where you can say, hey, I'm not sure that's a direction we want to take, or here's something else that I'd like to see for us doing for the future state. So did I hit all the some of the points there, or am I missing anything? Oh, Ted, you're on mute again, just like me. Sorry.
No, I think you hit on all the points there, Sean. And I just think going back to the last 2 points that you made, so the mentioning the Clean Energy Commission's plan, and then the CT Connecticut sustainability, whatever that thing is called. I guess my thought over the 3 years that I've been on the commission is that while it's interesting to serve as kind of the warm-up band for TPZ, I'm not sure we're giving a lot of value to the applicants that come in front of us. They are typically given quite a bit of direction from the town planning department, and they're usually well represented by professional people who know what they're doing. So maybe it's helpful for them, but I haven't gotten the sense that the time they spent in front of us and what we hear and the questions that we ask are particularly valuable. That may be counterbalanced by what, Matt, you've heard from TPZ folks, but I don't know. I just feel like that hasn't really been something that's been a good use of our time, and a lot of value is coming out of that. Where I do see we might provide some value to the town is to look at things from a conservation lens more holistically than perhaps the Clean Energy Commission does. So if Clean Energy Commission is focused solely on clean energy, and like Sean, I have to agree that the report was impressive. Sean and I probably differ a little bit in terms of how on target we might think it is and what it may have left out, just based on some of the questions that he asked and the questions that I was asking inside myself. But I think it was great that they had a plan and it's a framework. And so if CT or Sustainable Connecticut has a framework for issues that each town perhaps should think about, maybe that's something that we can use as a framework for our commission to go forward and say, okay, every year we'll pick off a section of that, and maybe spend the first month of the year trying to draft a schedule of topics within that chunk that we all want to tackle. And then personally, we can go and say, I'm very interested in that topic. Let me do that and research it for the next meeting that we have. So really have some homework to come back and present things in front of the commission, and then decide whether we want to pursue it as a commission, meaning the full body, or whether we want to let it drop. So that's getting into the weeds a little bit, but I'm just thinking that, having a framework like Sustainable CT might be something that would help guide us, because right now I feel like we're floundering a little bit.
So, and if not a plan, just some sort of platform where we say these are things in 2021 that we want to look at, and then maybe each month we say, okay, we're going to look at this section, assign it. That's what you'd like to see as a future state.
Right. And maybe if somebody can, because they're very interested in that particular topic. So like for me, it's like, pay as you throw is a very interesting concept, and I'd be happy to be, somebody who advocates for something like that. Sean, you might say, well, there's all sorts of unintended consequences there. So I'm going to kind of research those, prepare myself for Ted's presentation next month. That's fine. That way we have a lively debate, and we can, as a commission, decide whether it's something we want to pursue or not.
No, I like it. All right. What else? Kind of. I always say this tongue in cheek, but right. What we want to be when we grow up, so to speak.
Uh-oh. I think Mr. Daly might be having connectivity issues. We'll recognize Jessica Schaefer-Helmicke onto the attendance roster.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Well, I don't know about, us giving or gaining nothing from having reviewed years worth of inland wetlands applications.
I'm trying.
I now know.
One second.
Well, he ruined the joke I was going to tell. I'm not even going to tell it now because the timing is off. But it was involving straw wattles and drainage outfalls. Things that I wouldn't have had any idea about otherwise. I should also note, however, the conversation that predated Sean and Ronnie's involvement in the commission, and which was ongoing for at least a year, I'd say. Ted, you recall this. Emily, you recall this. Jessica, probably. The potential merger with other commissions of interest who can do similar things as us, maybe not by code, but just by their own volition. So the idea in the past that had been floated of merging with Clean Energy Commission, Bicycle Advisory Commission, do we dissolve? Do they dissolve? Does a super group be formed? There was no resolution on those issues, but there was exploration, and that was before everyone transitioned to the virtual environment. And so we did kind of park that as a result. It probably should be reflected just in the conversation notes here that was an ongoing sort of an exploration. Whether or not everyone decided to resolve it is a different story. I feel like everyone kind of stayed in the direction of let's maintain the structures that exist, but maybe identify common objectives, which is why I do like Ted's idea of using that common objective set through Sustainable CT as one potential way of doing that, because that has a unifying effect across multiple existing commissions. So just a thought. Mr. Daly, are you back on with us? We will give him the opportunity. In the meantime, nope, I see his signal dropped, so I'm sure he'll be rejoining us. As he was the facilitator for that conversation item, I will seek to close that out unless there's any objections, and we could return to it as needed if he rejoins, if that's all right with everybody. Thank you.
Yes.
I would like to move to approve the 2021 proposed meeting dates of the Conservation and Environment Commission, circulated probably in December. Does anyone have objections or concerns or requests regarding that? Or would they like to hear them out loud right here for review? I won't take nods. You have to say yes if you want to hear them.
I'd like to hear the dates.
Okay.
That would be helpful.
The dates are as follows. These are all Monday, February 22nd, March 29th, April 26th, May 24th, June 21st, July 26th, August 23rd, September 27th, October 25th, November 29th, December the 20th, and then the next year, January 2022, Monday the 31st. Did anyone identify issues or concerns with any of those dates?
I've got issues with two of the dates.
Matt-
I'm not sure how significant my conflicts are, but my daughter's birthday is March 29th and my birthday is May 24th. So other than that, it sounded like pretty good days.
And you don't want to spend your birthday attending a commission meeting?
You guys are fun. Let me tell you, Matt runs a mean meeting. So
We can sing you a happy birthday.
there you go. As long as I could leave early, we'll be good.
Well, that sort of flexibility could certainly be accorded, especially if you keep on complimenting the chair. But it also, you've got the prerogative of needing to miss a meeting if need be, or, a part of this is the balancing act of reserving dates that are not already booked by other commissions or council. And so, at least in the virtual environment, in the foreseeable future, West Hartford Community Television needs to be able to cover these to provide public access, and there can only be a certain number of bookings to that effect as well. So to the extent we want to change any of these, we could seek to try.
Well, Matt, is it safe to say too that these are a week before the planned TPZ meeting the following week? Is that, because I know we've tried to line up typically in the past for that.
Historically, we have. I think it's still safe to say that based on their routine meeting date being, I think, maybe the first Monday of each month, whereas ours was the last Monday of each month. Something along those lines. I shouldn't be going verbatim on the record with something I'm unsure about there, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that they still align as a just in case. Mr. Bush, would you like to propose any alternates while you had expressed the possibility of conflict in, what was it, March and May?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if my personal schedule is significant enough to warrant a change of date. I think I can either work around it or maybe stop in for maybe not necessarily the entire meeting, but I'll certainly do my best to attend on those two dates.
We always love seeing you. Okay. Motions to approve.
I make a motion. Second.
A second.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great. Aye. All opposed? None opposed. And the commission dates are approved. They will be transmitted to the town clerk to be logged into their calendar. I'm not seeing the return of Mr. Daly, so we'll consider that agenda item to be tabled as it was intended to be for continued discussion at a future meeting with another hour reserved. Mr. Bush.
Can I just make one comment regarding that, just as we table this part of the discussion? I think one of the things that needs to be really thought about by everybody, especially by Matt, who ultimately is the one who's in charge of the meetings, because certainly all of the commissioners can come and go much more easily if they choose to. When you start to make the commission more powerful or have it have more responsibility, it necessitates more responsibility on the part of the commissioners and the chairman. And I think that, if there's a need for it, obviously all of us are here. We're not here to waste our time and socialize on the internet. We'd like to have some value to what we're doing. But I think we should really take a very significant consideration as to what exactly it is that we're trying to do, what purpose we're trying to serve. And I think we should, my opinion, and again, I'm just putting it out there, is we should limit our scope to some degree and not bite off too much, unless, of course, other people want to really absorb it. I know that my role on this commission is going to be more of a limited advisory participant role. I'm not going to seek to be the chairman ever. It's not I have no ambition to do that. And I think, Matt, you do a nice job running the meetings. They're informative. They're to me, I've enjoyed every single one I've attended. I also, after the first meeting, when I realized we had no power, which is pretty obvious for the new guy, you're like, well, what the hell are we doing here? But I think ultimately it's become very comfortable to have no power and to be in a position where I think if something came across our desk, our collective desk, and we all felt strongly about it, that just based off of who we all are, that we actually have the power to stop or start or move some piece of legislation. I don't know if everybody knows, but I've had a little bit of dealings in politics, and I realized that it doesn't take an army to pass legislation. It just takes an active person with passion to move a piece of legislation through. So, I think we should really be careful before we bite off more responsibility than we really want to chew. So I think that's as much as I want to say about that.
I've enjoyed your comment very much.
Thanks.
I could relate to it. For the past few years, I've sought to have an uncapped ambition in terms of what this commission can do and how it could do it. But then I would contrast that against how I opened this meeting, which I'll reiterate here for the other half of the members that couldn't join us in the first 5 minutes, which was work, school, family. There are going to be a lot of priorities, and not having this be a full-time vocation, it makes that difficult to rise to the level of ambition that I think I originally set out for when I shook us so loose from the moorings that had held the CEC to its own little task, which we did faithfully every time, which was pre-approve and pre-review those inland wetlands and watercourses applications. That it was a whole big, scary, wide world past that for us. And we're still trying to figure out how do we be what we'd like to be within that. And I was opening the meeting with that as my way of introducing our new vice chair, who is not with us because of his signal right now, but based on expressions of interest and my call for participation of members several times over the past few years. And since it's been several years since we've had a vice chair, necessitating my involvement every time there's a meeting as we're going into a busy season, having a vice chair would be very helpful. And so Mr. Daly generously stepped up to that, for which I am very thankful. Even if we don't see eye to eye on nearly any issue, I do enjoy his enthusiasm right from the start. And so I think that is a valuable part of this commission. So I just wanted to announce that for the other members that weren't here at the start. Any other comments? Don't let that automatically be seen as my closing comment. I know if others want to chime in, weigh in, say hello tonight before we adjourn, please do. And I'll go on mute for just a minute for the sake of allowing others that breathing room.
Hi, yes, good evening. Apologies for my late arrival, but I was listening earlier, and I just wanted to echo that. I think Matt's point earlier about establishing some procedure, even about how we go about making decisions. not even what those decisions specifically are, but are we all going to vote on, what our next action is or how we're making these decisions? I think it might be worthwhile to set aside some time to even delve into those ground procedures. And that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you. I do agree, and it makes me wonder if there's a sequencing to that. Whether to deal with that in advance of figuring out the future state and where that involvement is or not, because the answer might be somewhere inside of that. I'm not sure, though. And thank you. Your comment is welcomed. Anybody else? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn. Ted?
Second.
Mr. Newton, seconded by Scott at 8:11 p.m. All in favor of adjournment? Aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Thanks for spending Monday with your CEC friends, everybody. Have a great one.
You too, Matt.
Thanks,
Bye,
Matt.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Aye.